What a week, a full week. I pause as I find a moment to focus in on in terms of an eventful week to the fireworks on Tuesday night with the singing and the sky lighting up and a sense of celebration. But of all those presentations marking a new administration, the piece that I also hold on to as a sense of the possibilities that an individual has, and by an extension that a country has, is that of overcoming difficulty of speech. And so let me start with Moses and our Parsha, because Moses, is our image of a great leader, but more, as somebody who overcame his own insecurities around speech and ultimately would be known as the teacher. Moshe Rabbeinu identified with his words. You may recall the moment at the burning bush. God says, out of the flame that does not consume that bush, I have a job for you. A job because I, God, have heard the crying of my people in Egypt. My job is to send you as my agent and to bring them to freedom. Now, if you thought God was speaking to you and said, I got a job for you, it's God. How can you say no to God? Moses begs off 5 times at the burning bush, saying, God, you got the wrong guy. I'm not up to the job. The penultimate excuse, Moses says as follows, chapter 4, verse 10. Be Adoni, please my master, my supreme. Lo ish devarim anochi. I am not a person of words. Gam itmol gam mishoshom. From yesterday, from the day before yesterday. Gam az dibarcha elavadecha. Also from then, the speech of your servant, ki kaved peh, was of a heavy mouth, uchved lashon anochi, of a heavy tongue am I. And the rabbis commenting on what does it mean to have a heavy tongue, say that he had a speech impediment, that most commentators in our classic tradition would say he was a stutterer. And God would respond and say to him, Mi sampeh Adam, who put the mouth into an earthling? O mi yasum elim o cheresh o pikeach o iver, who is the one who gives speech, who makes dumb and deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go and I will be with you. The first person that I ever heard stutter, maybe some of you remember this association, are Jim Neighbors. A moment ago I had one moment. The Andy Griffith Show that I grew up with. Now what was remarkable about Jim Neighbors, who was one of the personalities on the Andy Griffith Show, is that he had this beautiful deep voice, and he was mostly a singer, neighbor, presenting. But I remember as a child hearing him do an interview, and he was a terrible stutterer, which made me even then wonder about what is the nature of speech. That a person in some situations, like singing, could sing so beautifully, and yet in an interview had a terrible handicap. And so to this week, one of the things that most I'm aware of our President Joseph Biden is his history as a stutterer. I'm aware of it when he speaks. He doesn't have that fluidity of tongue. There is the quality that as a listener I am attuned to, that he is pacing himself and using his speech in a decidedly determined way, that it's not flowing. Now that's a handicap. We know that it's a handicap that he overcame from his youth, which means that when he speaks, his speech is clearly needing careful consideration of which words he can pronounce, how to pause, and mostly, and most importantly, what he wishes to convey. In that regard, in inauguration night, there was that boy that we saw on the evening news as the campaign was in progress. This boy that then Vice President Biden, the candidate, met along a rope line who had a terrible stutter. And we were all moved to know that candidate Biden took time to say to this boy, "Give me your phone number, I want to call you. I need to speak to you. I was a stutterer. I want to work with you. You have great possibilities." And there was a news segment to interview the boy, and the boy was part of the past. But on the evening of inauguration, when there was the celebration across America, there were readings from former inaugural addresses. And one of them was a boy saying the lines of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country," with the introductory verses. And it was fine. But as I was sitting on the couch watching it, my wife turned to me. Linda said, having Googled, "Do you know who that is?" I said, "No." That's the stutterer. Pretty remarkable, the progress he had made in a year. But the last of those moving moments of overcoming handicap, which is the link to our hero in our Torah reading, Moses, who in our Torah reading is repeatedly coming back to Pharaoh with the responsibilities of representing not just the children of Israel, but representing God, finding the words to speak. And that is that young, lithe woman, Amanda Gorman. I didn't know who she was before I heard her speak as part of the inauguration. I hope you saw her. If not, look for her. For me, she is the most uplifting of words. When she spoke a poem, a new position was created for her, the Poet Youth Laureate of America. What I didn't know before she spoke is that she was the daughter of a single mom who grew up in Los Angeles, who through grit would find her way to Harvard, where she would graduate with honors. But more, she, as part of that grit, had overcome a speech impediment. Frankly, it was Carl who was filling me in on it just before the service, having seen her in an interview. Apparently, like many children who have a hard time pronouncing the letter R, she had difficulty pronouncing R, but it was more than just as a child. It continued throughout her growing up and became an obstacle, so that when she began to develop a desire to write poetry, she said that she had to pick words that she felt she could say and pauses to allow her to say the words that were a stretch for her. Her poem that night is a poem about America, about the possibilities of becoming a country that seeks to work together to enable a dream, an old dream, to move forward, to possibilities, and then to reality. I can't repeat the words, though I will listen to it, I am sure, more than once for its play on words, its musicality. But when she delivered it, she danced it, or she signed it. Her whole person conveyed with such extraordinary poise this lithe, small, and powerful person uplifted us all. And so in this week in which there were fireworks in the sky, but more, words that ripple across time, so I anticipate, may we remember the possibility of possibility, that when things look broken, they can be fixed. Moshe Rabbeinu was called by God to fix what seemed like a deeply entrenched rhythm of brokenness. And yet the man who said of himself, Lo ish devarim anochi, I am not a person of words, would lead. May we gather as a community to pray for our leaders, that they should be able to uplift us into greater unity, to greater fulfillment of dreams, into reality of unity. May words be spoken that ripple across time, that enable possibility of shalom, of peace among ourselves. Amen.